So as you know, Olivia, how we like to start these conversations is I like to understand how you got to where you are today. And remember, our audience is a mix of sort of entrepreneurs. We have investors, we have students, and I think it's really important that they hear, someone's journey. And so that's my first question: is introducing yourself and just, a little about your journey of where you started, and then how did you end up today? Which we'll get into more detail about chapter 3. But how did you end up where you are today and what your journey was?
Right. Thank you, Bill. And thank you all for having me here today. So yeah, I'm Olivier. I'm the founder of a VC firm called Chapter 3 Capital. And the way it started all many, many years ago, I was born in Germany, but eventually I went to art school in the UK. And so that was many, many years ago. And between now and then, working in the healthcare space, you can imagine lots of things have happened. So I'm a creative at heart. I come up with ideas. I studied design. And so I naturally progressed to become a designer, an art director, and creative director in the advertising industry in London. So that was my first career in advertising, working on big global, campaign launches, Visa, Gatorade, Nissan, the usual suspects, going from agency to agency. And I ended up doing that for 14 years. And after 14 years, I also realized that as exciting as it was to be creative and be involved in creating new content and big campaigns, more and more I realized that actually, the products that I'm selling, I'm not really interested in them because they don't really have an impact on people's lives or the planet, or, there's no bigger meaning behind, selling even more sugar water off the shelf. I just couldn't do that anymore. So after 14 years, I was lucky enough to meet a lot of very smart, inspiring people from Google. And so if advertising was my first chapter, the second chapter, if you wish, was Google. And so I brought creativity and the creative thinking into the technology world. And so I was lucky enough that the Google folks gave me the permission to start my own incubator inside of Google. What that meant is, as a creative person, I had access to a lot of really smart engineers who were working in their literally garages on their prototypes and APIs, not knowing what those could represent for the industry and the world. And so as a creative guy, I played off many assumptions of what the technology could represent for different verticals. So when you think about market fit, opportunity sizing, use cases with big global brands, partnerships, I was like an accelerator for their technologies. And I ended up doing that for 11 years. So 11 years working on those early prototypes. And then, well, what if we talk to Unilever or Nestle or Coca-Cola? How could we partner and do something bigger together? So in essence, I was scaling and productizing new tech. And then the third chapter, if you wish, after 11 years doing this, I just thought, now it's time to start my own company, to place my own bets on the next generation of companies that, one could argue could maybe become a Google. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what got me to healthcare as being one of the key verticals that I'm focused on. So yeah, a long journey.
Great. And now you're in chapter 3, which is what we want to talk about actually right now. So that's a fantastic journey. So let's talk a little bit about your recent Breakthrough Alliance member and board member. So we're happy to have you as part of the board. And also now running your own venture capital firm. Can you talk a little bit about your decision to join not only the Breakthrough Alliance, but really, what's the impetus behind chapter 3? What are you focusing on, and what are you trying to build with that particular venture capital firm?
Sure. Let's talk about the Breakthrough Alliance first. So I've been working with HITLAB related to the Alliance for many years now, going back to my days at Google in my function there, and talking to the symposiums and just collaborating with the board, with Stan, with the whole organization. But my contributions and participation sadly was always very limited because I was tied to Google's agendas and crazy timelines, calendars. I could never really fully live the connectedness to HITLAB and the team. And now that I created chapter 3, I'm free to do whatever I want to do. And I also need to be smart about who I spend my time with and on what I spend my time on. And I feel like if I want to create something magical and truly groundbreaking for the healthcare vertical in the pharma worlds, to me, HITLAB and the Breakthrough Alliance, to me, is like the standard in the industry that helps me identify new opportunities, meet leaders like yourselves in the space, subject matter experts, access to technologists, and also the whole research body and expertise that Columbia represents. So all those things coming together, I'm like, yes, I would love to join the Alliance. So thank you for having me join, and that's now really what I'm mostly excited about. And the reason why I started Chapter 3, because after building other people's brands that are already massive, and some of those dinosaurs, after building and scaling those for many years and helping them, I'm mostly excited about the next generation of those big companies. So I'm a builder at heart, 0 to 1, not 1,000 to 1,000,000, because, by the time I left Google, it was a very different company, and that wasn't that exciting anymore.
All right, well, let's talk about building companies. It's my understanding that, some of what you're going to be doing with Chapter 3 is focusing on value-based care solutions. And why is it important for you to start there as at least one part of what you're trying to do? Why is that important, do you think?
Well, coming from Google, where the only thing that matters is data, from performance reviews to measuring impact of prototypes to measuring the impact of driving someone's business, it's all about data, because no one can argue with data. And if you have data, and you measure that data and you understand that data, then if you translate it into the healthcare world, by putting the patient and the human being first above anyone else or any other entity, I think that is how truthfully, fundamentally, we can change people's lives, because we can then measure the impact of treatments, of medication. And it can be as vast as not just focused on the patient, but also related to the patient when it comes to, trials, discovery, supply chain, anything that's related to giving care to patients and being able to measure that, all goes back to data. And if there's one thing I understand after all those years, it's data. And that's what I'm excited about, the opportunity.
Yeah, we have that in common. One of the GHI's fund's big belief is data is the currency we're going to use to transact in that future healthcare market. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. One of the things that we see with digital health, it's hard to come up with the right digital health strategy and the right tools to be implemented, and then even scaling. And just kind of your thoughts on how you potentially see the implementation of the right strategy and tools, and then how you might think about scaling, because that seems to always be the hardest part of digital.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my take on this, zooming out, thankfully we are in 2023, where I think technology, specifically AI as an example, is so sophisticated and is so capable then that I truly believe we can build anything that we want to build. It's more a question of, is it the right thing to build in the first place? And so when I think about the data that's now more available to us than ever, for many years, I believe we have had access to data that was very unstructured, and therefore it wasn't very usable, and it was just sitting on a shelf, which now, based on what we now know, was a missed opportunity, because now technology is so smart. You can pump in unstructured data, and the system and the technology has become so smart that they can structure the data to get to insights that eventually will become very actionable and real. And that's why I think working with those systems now more than ever, from a strategy perspective, again, we can build anything that we want to build, and we can build. And also we can get to insights and actions faster than ever. So that to me is a true opportunity.
Sounds good. Okay, we have time for one last question, and it's a little get more focused on Chapter 3, and then so me as an investor, and then we have a lot of the audience that are entrepreneurs. How do they work with you? Are you stage agnostic, or are you early seed? Who should be contacting you, and how do they do that?
Yeah, so I started Chapter 3 as like my own little angel fund. So I've been investing my own money. into companies that I believe in based on the knowledge and expertise that I've, gathered over the years. But now that chapter 3 is growing and exposure is growing, yes, it's definitely early stage, pre-seed, seed, and my goal is to work with the founders and partner with them to help them get to Series A and beyond. The way I do it is, obviously, when you think about the alliance in HITLAB, when it comes to the healthcare vertical, working with experts and leveraging my network and really rolling up my sleeves to be action-oriented versus many other VCs who just put money down and say, please get me a return 5 years from now, let's talk then. I'm the opposite. It's not just about an investment, but it's also the ability where I believe I can actually contribute true value. I would never invest in a company where I don't have the network, I don't have the expertise. Yes, I'm a marketer at heart, but I have no idea how to market your product. This is all about basically look at me as an advertising agency / Google network. Can I combine those to deliver value? And so a lot of times I love the product, but I have no idea how I could literally help. If you ask me tomorrow at 9 o'clock to show up and work on something, if I don't know what I would actually work on, I wouldn't be able to partner as much as I love the idea.